Helldivers, the new chemical agents warbond is finally out, and for the first time ever, I'm gonna say skip it. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I think this is the first time I've ever gotten a warbond have just been underwhelmed by it. A grenade and 2 new stratagems, it does shake it up a little bit. I know there's been a lot of controversy over there being stratagems rather than like primary weapons, and people are afraid about having stratagems locked behind a pay to quote win system, which I don't believe at all. But really, if you're going to call it pay to win, this is more pay to lose because the stratagems are awful. Or I guess a better word than awful, are so niche that there's not really a good use for them. Kind of like smoke. If you didn't know, in the last patch, they had a little note that, hey, we've updated how gas works. Gas now does less damage, but confuses enemies. And by confuse enemies, it's truly like a berserk mechanic you would see in a lot of games, or a confusion mechanic where the enemies just start attacking randomly, they move around randomly, they don't come beelining for you anymore. It is good for crowd control. But you know what's even better for crowd control is just eliminating the enemies so you don't have to deal with them at all. So the sterilizer requires you to get up and personal with the bugs or bots. It does work on both. And spray them with it and do slow damage to them and confuse them. And then either you have to have an ally to finish them off, you swap to a different gun to finish them off, or you mag dump your entire cartridge into them and hope it takes them down. The gas is very, very, very weak. It does take quite a lot to take down even basic enemies, and it is a damage over time effect, so it does take time for that to tick and take them down. So here's why I call it niche. Because you could select a different gun and try and take them down. In this case, I used the Liberator Concussive to try out that new drum barrel, which is awesome, but the gun doesn't do nearly as much damage as using like an eruptor or a crossbow. So again, you're mag dumping to take down basic trash. It takes a long time. That's not really effective. You could mag dump your entire thing into them and hope it takes them down, but again, that takes a lot of time. You're using a lot of ammo and doesn't necessarily do a lot. So what you would intend to do, it seems, is you bring a friend and you mag dump into them, and your friend is taking them down at the same time since they're not in any danger of the gas while it's making them berserk and run around, and you work together to take them down. That does work, but that's very niche. One, because a lot of times people are running around doing their own thing because, again, most people don't play with their friends. They're simply playing with randoms, no mics, and they're just kind of doing their thing. Nothing wrong with that, but it makes this less useful in that exact scenario. And every time that I'm in that scenario, I can't help but think, like, yeah, that's cool that this crowd control is working and my friend can come over here and help finish him. But if I had just brought a flamethrower, like, I could have done this all myself much faster, much more effectively, and it would take down bigger targets much faster and much more effectively. So, like, why wouldn't I just bring the flamethrower? And while we're comparing it to the flamethrower, we have to complain about the visuals. The gas is very hard to see, and so people will run into it and start taking damage and not know why. I had multiple people run straight into my gas and KO themselves because they didn't see that they were taking damage, and it was too late by the time they realized it, and they didn't get off a good stim booster in time. Same with the flamethrower, honestly, that does happen, but with the flamethrower, at least you can see the flame. You have the visuals that say, hey, stay away from this area, and you can stop, drop, and roll if you happen to catch on fire, and that helps as well. So I feel like the flames, while in the same hand, does the same thing where it's like, hey, you can't enter this area, but at least you can see that you can't enter that area, and if you accidentally do, you can do something about it. The gas does no such thing. Now, they also give you a gas grenade, which does essentially the same thing, but I just don't see any reason to pick it. It is much better in a grenade form since you can lob it farther and it gives you a chance to, like, okay, confuse the enemies, run behind cover, something like that. It does have a good use there. But at the same time, you could either bring a stun grenade and just stun the enemies and take them out easier that way, or save your life or run away. It has more uses there without hurting yourself. Or you could bring the overpowered thermite grenade now and take out everything. So once again, crowd control is great, but if the crowd control is harder than taking the enemies out, then what's the point? We could just take the enemies out and make the entire area safer for everyone. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I've unlocked dog breath, but I imagine it's going to be the same thing as all the other drones. I don't think it's going to have any special AI just for it. Why would they program that drone any differently than the other ones? So we know there's going to be a problem with it swarming around, shooting you, shooting your allies. And again, you can't see the gas once it's shot out there, so your allies are going to be in constant danger of getting sprayed without knowing what they're getting hit with. Now, as you can see here, I tested everything on the bugs first because I figured this was a bug-based weapon, but I wanted to be fair and I tested out on the bot front, and I gotta be honest, it was even worse on the bot front. Because you have to get up close and personal, you're taking shots the entire time, you can't just hide behind cover. The only thing it works decently effective against is the berserkers, but again, you don't want to get close to the berserkers to spray the gas in the first place, so I just don't see a place for this weapon unless specifically you have a team that you've crafted and you're saying, I want to be crowd control. This is what I'm going to do. Stay close to me and, mop up all my targets because I'm not going to be able to finish them with this thing. In fact, in the bot matches, I disliked it so much, I ended up scavenging other people's stratagem weapons off them when they died or when they dropped an extra one for me because I just felt like I was a liability with it and I wasn't able to accomplish anything with the weapon. And it is worth noting, it does work on the Hulks. I was able to spray it on a Hulk and crowd control them and stun them. So it does work on larger targets. I don't want you to feel like it doesn't work on them. But again, it goes back to, okay, I can spray the Hulk with it for 50 seconds and wait for it to go down. Or I could just one tap it with a rail cannon or a recoilless rifle or just toss a thermite grenade and run away and it'll be gone in 3 seconds. So there might be a niche use with you could use it only as, oh no, we're surrounded and then we can spray some enemies and y'all can get away. But a stun grenade can do that much better. An EMS mortar can do that much better. I just don't see a use for this outside of great communication. And even then, you're better off with a flamethrower. I almost feel like this shouldn't have been a stratagem. And I know that, again, we're getting back to that conversation of no stratagems locked behind money, but I feel like if this was a primary gun, it would be much better, honestly, because you could then crowd control and deal with things that way, but then you still have a bigger gun for dealing with larger enemies or dealing with crowds. It just doesn't do enough to justify a whole stratagem slot, where if it was a primary, I could see it being brought as a primary for, again, the crowd control effects, but then you have the stratagems, so you're actually useful and not a liability. And honestly, that's where I'm going to put the stim pistol as well. I know a lot of people have been speculating that it's going to be the meta, that the stim pistol is going to be the new must-take weapon, and I just don't see that being the case. In the total of the matches that I played, 3 matches with people, there was maybe 1 or 2 moments where I saw someone close enough to me who was injured that if I had the stim pistol, I might be able to help them with it. This moment right here is one where maybe a stim pistol would have helped, but he already stimmed himself. Most of the time I don't see my allies, there's too many enemies in the way. I just don't see it functionally being good enough to remove the grenade pistol, which is the GOAT of sidearms, or having an actual sidearm for emergencies, whereas the stim pistol can't really do much. Now, I haven't unlocked it yet, but if the stim pistol does give you the ability to stim yourself, that's a different story. But everything I've heard from everyone so far is just that the pistol can only shoot your allies and heal them that way. And again, it's not useless, it's just so niche that I don't see it being a useful thing to bring when you can bring something else that's useful, that's more useful 90% of the time than the one niche time you might be close enough to an ally to maybe aim and shoot them and not get the shot blocked by an enemy and heal them before they can heal themselves. It's just too much niche for it to be a general everyday carry. And again, it hurts me to make this video because after the last patch, I want to support Arrowhead. And if you can afford the $10, I definitely recommend giving them a little bit of money to thank them for the patch, but I just don't see the stuff in this warbond being worth $10 yet. Now, of course, there'll be new balance patches, there'll be new pass-throughs, so there's a chance that eventually it does get there. But if you're on the fence about it right now, or you can't afford it, or you're wondering whether or not to get this one or a different warbond, I would definitely say this is the lowest priority warbond. This one is the one you skip until very, very, very last, unless you have a group of friends dedicated and you are the crowd control specialist and that's the niche that you like to fill. With all of that said, how do you feel about stratagems being locked behind warbonds with this new one? We've talked a little bit, people call it pay to win. I really don't believe that, and especially like I said, with how bad these ones are, I don't necessarily know that that could be called pay to win at all. But how do you feel about it? Tell me in the comments down below, and as always, have a blessed day. Oh, and one last little thing, the armor looks absolutely sick, so that is cool. Check out the Super Credit store if you're watching this the day this video comes out, because the helmet that's in there is just awesome. The gas mask helmet looks amazing. Go with so many other sets, I think, too, so check out the Super Credit store. Don't miss out on the helmet. It is very, very cool. Okay, that's all I had to say. Have a blessed day.